Welcome on into GoldSheet TV, a special Week 5 Best Bets episode. Of course, I'm not in my regular studio right now. I'm in a hotel room in Washington, D.C., attending Thursday Night Football tonight. My Washington Commanders hosting the Chicago Bears. But Newbie and I already broke down that game, so make sure you check out our episode on Tuesday if you get a chance before this show goes live. But as always, Thursday episodes, Best Bets for Week 5. Newbie, we have a nice slate going, and we're going to start off in London. Except we're not at Wembley Stadium this weekend. We're at Tottenham Stadium. But the Buffalo Bills are technically the home team here, facing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have spent the last 2 weeks in London doing some team bonding, I'm sure, hanging out, going to do some sightseeing and whatnot, obviously preparing for this Buffalo Bills football team. Newbie, talk to me. How are you approaching this game? Because I had a pretty strong thought at first. I've kind of flip-flopped on that, so I'm kind of curious to see if you agree with my flip-flop or my initial reaction here.
Yeah, we're looking at Buffalo about 5.5-point favorites, 6 even at one spot at a notable offshore. I'm looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen as we're recording here on Thursday morning. Just remember, though, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, this is the over London Stadium. They have the fast grass at the Hotspur Stadium, and they have the slow grass at Wembley. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but this does kind of seem like Wembley games always go under, and Hotspur games always seem to be shootouts, probably more anecdotal than anything. But as far as the game goes, man, it's pretty simple for me of why it's Jacksonville or stay away. I mean, everybody wants to go and bet the Bills. If you saw what they did last year, they're now the Super Bowl winner after they took down the Dolphins at home in a terrific spot for the Bills, one that I made the case for the Bills on the show last week. And the travel to London, it's no joke. And you mentioned how Jacksonville stayed out there doing team bonding, not having to travel. Sure, they had to change hotels because the Bills actually booked the hotel that the Jaguars were staying in previously. So the Jaguars had to change hotels, switch where they were at, but they didn't have to do the travel that the Bills did. After hearing how great they are, they downed the Dolphins. They're the best team. Josh Allen, MVP favorite. They've been talked about all week long and now go overseas against a team who I think I discounted the familiarity that they had. I mean, the Falcons never had a shot in that game, and the Bills aren't the Falcons, but I'll tell you what, after hearing how great you are all week long and then getting on a plane and going over to London, all the sights, all the sounds that they'll be taking in, while Jacksonville, it's just another business trip for them and a trip they didn't have to go far to make. I'm going to take the points at home, or at home, so to speak, with the Jacksonville Jaguars in this one.
Yeah, so initial thoughts here, obviously, like, all right, you have a Jacksonville Jaguars team coming off a big win against the Falcons. They looked great against them. But it's also a game that when we broke down, Newbie, it's a game that we mentioned that the Jaguars matched up really well with the Falcons on. Their run defense is great.
Yeah.
The Falcons only run the football. Once they turn into a drop-back passing game, the Falcons were never going to have a shot regardless, and that's how it transpired. So in this game, I just thought, hey, now you have Josh Allen coming in, who's obviously going to throw the football on the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. Jaguars defense is not great. Maybe that 5.5, especially if it was a 6, you could tease down to PK. That Buffalo outright would be a great way to look at it. But after thinking about it more, the fact that Jacksonville is staying in London for 2 weeks is something unprecedented, right? It hasn't had the back-to-back weeks. So how do you quantify it? Not exactly sure. I'm obviously not going to say, hey, concocted some formula to figure that out or anything like that. But simply thinking about it, though, there's no way that it can't benefit Jacksonville, right? It could be net negative, if anything, but it can't help Buffalo, if anything, right? So based on how this game was lined out before the season, I think this was like a 3.5-point spread before. At look aheads, obviously, markets adjust and react and move the numbers as things transpire and weeks go on and on. But this Jacksonville Jaguars team, at 2-2, I was down on them coming to the season. I still see some flaws in this team, but we're not talking about a bad football team. We're talking about still a good football team that has 10-win potential, but obviously the way the NFL breaks, you could also, it's because you can win 10 games, it means you can still win 8 or 7 games because of how one-score games break out. So just after considering more so how, there can only be an edge with Jacksonville with the travel, like it can't help Buffalo, it can only help Jacksonville, if anything at all. I think taking a good team that's had this 2 week straight here is worth 6 points here. Now it's 5.5 basically painted everywhere. That's a little bit of a dead number. 6 is a huge number. If you could get a 6 at 120, that's definitely better than 5.5. So while this was a play that GoldSheet released initially, it's something that isn't going to make the LTS wager talk card because of those kind of things that align that can only really help Jacksonville. Well, I think Buffalo is better, and if you're telling me, in a playoff game, if Buffalo's laying 5.5, I'm probably leaning toward the Bills there if it's in Buffalo or so on and so forth. But it's not, and Jacksonville is probably a good look this weekend. So definitely something to consider there. But moving on to another game that is moving on the board pretty well, and also just want to remind everybody to like the video and send some comments down below of who you like and love. Newbie and I love chopping it up with you guys in the comment section. But this is a very interesting game. Opened at a 6-point spread, like at the look ahead, and was immediately bet down to 4. Kept going, bet down to 3. And right now I'm seeing 2.5s across the board a little bit here on the WagerTalk Live odds screen. This is new. This was 2.5. This number was moving as I was preparing for the show. Newbie, at this point now, because I know at first you were looking at Arizona +3, does this 2.5 kill anything for you? Is this an Arizona money line situation for you, or at this key number being gone, has this kind of changed things now?
Yeah, it definitely, and this is, if you're catching us, run, don't walk, and that's what I had in my notes here. If you want to bet the Arizona Cardinals, unfortunately, we don't go live here. We record in the morning. You get it in the afternoon. If there's 3s out there, I absolutely love it, but I'm still here to make a case for the money line for the Arizona Cardinals. So it's not going to keep me off. I'm not going to stay away, even though it's dropped below that very key number of 3, because think about, you mentioned at the open, it was 6, and it's only dropped from that point. The preseason look-ahead number was Cincinnati -8. It's week 5, folks. It's time to start trusting what we believe and what we have seen from these teams. And these are 2 teams, I would argue, outside of Houston maybe, these are 2 teams that are starkly different from what their preseason expectations were. The Cardinals were supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league, not even competitive. Who's going to be their quarterback? Josh Dobbs has filled that role very nicely and expertly so. I mean, Arizona was 2 drop touchdown passes at the end of the game away from covering, albeit a 14-point spread against the big, bad 49ers last week, and being 4-0 against the spread on the year. On the other side of the ball, the Bengals are a mess, man. Joe Burrow looks like a shell of himself. A lot of that has to do with the injury woes. I think a lot of that also has to do with this team just not working with each other in the offseason. Will they come along? Sure. Could it maybe be in this game against the Arizona Cardinals? Maybe. But this is not a Cardinals team that is going to be rolling over. And the Bengals are a kind of football team right now that if a team doesn't roll over, they're going to have a hard time winning the game. They're going to have a hard time winning by more than a field goal. And as I mentioned, sure, those 3s are disappearing quickly. If you can grab one of those, do it. But I'm also sprinkling on the money line. I think the Cardinals are a live dog here at home. And Cincinnati is just a team I don't want to even make a little bit of a case for. I like playing devil's advocate. I don't even think the devil can advocate for what we've seen from the Bengals thus far this year. I'll take Cardinals at 3. I'll take them at 2.5. I'll sprinkle on the money line. I like the Cardinals at home to get it done against the Bengals.
I think you made a really great point about how obviously after now being 5 weeks into an NFL season or 4 weeks in, so, a quarter of the way there, where you now have to make a decision of what prior convictions did you have that you're ready to throw out the window and say, hand up, I was completely wrong on this team. I'm adjusting my ratings properly, and now I can move forward and maybe make some money backing this team if the market disagrees, and vice versa. And this is something that you and I can discuss on a whole nother episode, because this is like a pretty deep dive topic, like when to go away from your priors, when to adjust and completely like flip flop on a team. So I'll keep a long story short there. Obviously, Arizona, I would say anybody in the market, it's clear that the market has flipped on this team. Everybody had the low expectations now for them coming to the season. Now they're just 3-point dogs against the Cincinnati Bengals team. That's was one of the best teams in the AFC for the last couple of seasons. I obviously see the cases for the Cardinals. If I was getting a 6 at the open, a 5.5, a 4.5, yeah, I would have taken that number. I did not get there. But when it gets down to Cincinnati minus a 2.5, minus a key number, I know how bad the Bengals have been. Not just Joe Burrow and his injury. That offensive line has been miserable. That defense has been terrible at stopping the rush and the pass. The only time that they really had a great game was when they teed off against the Rams' terrible backup offensive line. and that's a game they probably shouldn't have even won. So with all this being said, it sounds like, oh, I'm with you. Like, I got to back the Cardinals here. This is a strong lean. It's not something that's going to make the card. I'm not betting this game, but if it gets under 2.5, I have to take the Bengals in this situation, or at least make the case for the Bengals, because you're talking about a team with a quarter, like 2.5 Cardinals Bengals is something you'd only imagine is if Joe Burrow wasn't playing. And I know he's not healthy, and maybe he is getting healthier each and every week. It hasn't really seemed that way just yet. Maybe he should have taken those first 2 games off to really get 100 back to 100%. But I find it hard from my prior conviction, what we know about these two teams, to see Cincinnati laying less than a field goal at Arizona. Like, Arizona deserves all the credit in the world for what they've done offensively and defensively, how hard they play, how well prepared they are for each and every opponent. Josh Dobbs deserves all the credit in the world, head coach Jonathan Gannon, so on and so forth. But I'm not ready to believe that Cincinnati is going to lose to Arizona, and now not just win, but also only win by 3 points. Like, this isn't like they cover the key number of 3. Like, they're not asking Cincinnati to win by 7, win by 6, or so on and so forth. So I would actually have a strong lean toward the Bengals at the 2.5 at this point. But any number over 3, yeah, I would have to take the Cardinals here.
Yeah, and for me, if we got 2.5, and we're looking at a game that has a 44 total, if this thing's closing to 2.5, that's a teaser leg for me. Give me Arizona at 8.5. So that's the way that I look at it. Is okay, maybe I lost getting off of the 3, but now it actually fits the mold of being an advantage teaser and going through 3 and going through 7, if that is going to be the number it closes at. So I would rather make the case for Arizona in the teaser than take Cincinnati under the key number, though it makes a heck of a lot of sense. It is all about key numbers after all. So yes, I definitely see the breakdown that you're given there. I would just think that with a team that I think is live, if now it fits the mold of a Wong teaser, give me that leg all day long.
Yeah, looking at the WagerTalk Live odds screen now, and at DraftKings, which is a book that still offers, obviously legal mostly everywhere, that still offers minus 120 odds on 6-point teasers. Arizona is 100% live in that situation. So great call there, Newbie. Definitely interested in that. And also, we want to talk a little bit about teasers. Go over to X and follow Newbie at Newbie Talks. There's a hilarious graphic of Newbie and our good friend of the program, Dave Sharapan. They do their podcast, The Cash Consideration Show. Great show. They love talking teasers, teaser paradise. I love talking teasers on GoldSheet TV and WagerTalk TV. So definitely great. And while we're talking Twitter, like I said, I'll be at the Commanders game tonight. Let's go Washington. I'll be having all of my plays, including my fun parlays and whatnot, will be posted on my Twitter/X account at Slime Action tonight. So if you want a fun sweat with me, as well as my legitimate plays, I got Justin Fields over rush yards. That'll all be on Twitter tonight. Moving on to the next matchup, though. Now, this is a game where I see why the market is kind of doing what it's doing, but I think it's kind of overreacted here. Are the Kansas City Chiefs headed to Minnesota to take on the Vikings? This has continuously ticked down now. It's sitting at 4.5, depending where you look. Mostly 4 is painted across the board, though. Newbie, is this square to just say you're giving me 4 points with the Chiefs? I have to take this bet, or what? Because that's where I'm sitting, and that's the boat I'm in personally.
Well, it also might be square just taking 4 points with a home dog, but I think in this case it might be hip to be square, like Huey Lewis in the news said, because Pat Mahomes just got outplayed in prime time by Zach Wilson. Like, let me repeat that in case you didn't hear it. Zach Wilson outplayed Pat Mahomes, and I'll be honest with you. I just think that this Chiefs team, what has their MO been? I know that they're regarded as this juggernaut team. They're always around the Super Bowl, but their MO has kind of been coasting through the regular season. They're talented enough. They're good enough to beat teams and really not have to expend much energy to do it. And that's what I've kind of seen so far out of them this year. And then factor in the distraction that they have. Anywhere where the Chiefs are going, the circus is coming to town now. That's just the nature of the beast with the Swifty sensation that the NFL is shoving down the fans' throats right now with this Kansas City Chiefs team. And this Chiefs team just seems like a team that's coasting a little bit. I'll be the one to say it. Maybe I'll get some egg on the face, but Minnesota in no sense is a team that is able to afford themselves to coast with the start to their year. This is as ugly as a dog as you're going to find, and those are my favorite kind of dogs. Ugly dogs need love too. Kansas City's wondering what celebrity is going to show up to the game, while Minnesota Vikings are worried about, hey, are we going to have a season here after this week? I'm going to take the points at home. If you even look around what Pat Mahomes has done this year, take your pick on quarterback metrics. He's around the middle of the pack in all of them. So, I think there still is some really real reality of them missing Eric Bieniemy on this offense. And we know Minnesota can score points. Can they stop Kansas City, though? That's the big question. But this offense, with how clunky that it's looked, I'm going to take the 4 at home with Kirk Cousins. I wish that we were getting him at 1 o'clock, but 4:25, I'll have to live with this one. I'll take the points at home with the Vikings here.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. This is the closest, close enough to prime time as it could be without being prime time. So obviously,
that's fair.
Keep that in the handicap. So you made a lot of points that I agree with, but you also made a couple of points that, while I agree with, I kind of view differently. So I think that the Chiefs and their MO has been like, yes, you're completely correct that throughout the regular season they struggle winning by margin against good to bad, actually some mediocre to bad teams sometimes. Because I think it's more so that they play with their food a little bit. And while they were beaten, or Mahomes was outplayed by Wilson, they only won that game by 3 points. Mahomes made the smart play by taking the knee without scoring that touchdown to run out the clock. But in reality, he commandeered a crazy long drive to shut out that game where, if it would have happened 1 or 2 plays earlier, he would have scored that touchdown. And we were talking about a Chiefs cover spread win by 10. Well, every time the Chiefs are playing a bad team, laying 8, 9, 10 points, they're always going to be overvalued because, like you said, they are the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, everybody expects them to be world beaters. They're a hell of a football team on both sides of the ball, but just that notion automatically will overvalue them. I think this is a spot where now they're actually being undervalued against the Vikings team that, of course, is just 1-3. But, like you said, their offense is humming. Brian Flores is doing a good enough job defensively, but I think that this is a game where the wheels are going to fall off because you're going to blitz Patrick Mahomes over 50% of the time. I know he doesn't love his receiving core right now, and nobody does, but I think he'll be able to connect with them. I do agree with you that a lot of these issues for the Chiefs are self-inflicted, like the whole Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift thing. Everyone talks about ad nauseum. Like, that cannot not be a distraction for this team. Kansas City Chiefs playing with their food and not really having reliable receivers are things that have been a thing over the last couple of years since I left Tyreek Hill go. Like, it is a Travis Kelce-centric offense, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But if this number gets 2, 3.5, or even to 3, like, I'm betting Kansas City, like, without hesitating. Like, Kansas City will be in whatever money line parlay I throw out this week because I don't think there's any way to lose this game. I think the market has overreacted to the Chiefs' narrow win against the Jets because the Chiefs are always overvalued against bad teams. It just is their MO. They struggle to win by margin and cover those margin games. But this is a game that has the makings of a track meet that I think is a similar situation where whoever's kicking a field goal is losing this game. So that's why I think the 4 will come into play there. And I think that the Chiefs will actually win this game by 7+ because they are far superior to the Vikings. Perfect conditions, obviously, indoors. Chiefs defense at this point, if anything, is underrated. So, this one seems a little bit too good to be true. Chiefs against only 4 points against a 1-3 team. I see the pros for the Vikings, but somehow, some way, I'm viewing this game as the Chiefs being a little bit undervalued. We'll probably be making the GoldSheet card in some capacity. But any final thoughts, Anu? Did I do any convincing to you there, or are you still sticking with the guns?
No, I think you nailed it, man. It's just with what I personally believe and what the numbers that I put together say. It's not like it's a strong play. Like, if this was me putting in an entry for the Mega Millions contest or anything like that, probably Minnesota would be on the long list as opposed to being on the short list. But it's not a play that I entirely hate. Like, if I'm in a contest where you have to pick every single game against the spread, forced picks, I would be taking Minnesota here.
Yeah, and I see that completely. But I am definitely into Kansas City, and that's why I love football, because you're going to have disagreements on certain sides, and you're going to watch the WagerTalk live screen bounce back and forth on numbers. It's literally bettors competing against each other on certain numbers. So it's interesting as hell. So definitely take some time, wagertalk.com live odds, and check that out. We got three more games we want to get to. We want to get through them quickly. Of course, ending off with Dallas, San Francisco, a game that we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about that hell of a matchup. But speaking of matchups, definitely not one that I think I'll be watching at all this weekend. But the Denver Broncos hosting the Jets. Jets, Zach Wilson off the best performance of the season, maybe even his career. If you listen to me on Wager Talk today, I'm not buying the Wilson stock. The worst case scenario, if you ask me, is for him to ball out against the Broncos again this upcoming weekend, so the Jets have some false hope that maybe he's good again. Spoiler alert, he still sucks. Newbie, considering that, talk to me. How are you viewing Broncos Jets?
Yeah, and I'm starting to realize as we're running down the board, I'm just giving out antacid plays this entire week. Like if you're riding with Newbie here this week, you definitely want to make sure you have a trash can nearby, because some of these picks are disgusting. And this one notwithstanding, I'm looking towards Denver. I mean, if you want to lay the 1.5, sure. I think at that price, you might as well just take the points out of it and take the money line here. Here's the thing is I'm glad that we couple this with the Chiefs game, because it kind of goes with some of the things that I was just talking about, is that everyone is talking about the hold and the slide and how the Jets should have beat the Chiefs. They should have covered against the Chiefs. They didn't. All right, like reality check, they didn't. And if he slid in, if he goes into the end zone, to Eric's point, we're talking about a much different situation here. Who did come from behind and actually win the game is Denver. They were down 28. And you're going to say it's against the Bears. That makes them look horrible. To me, that's a point. It doesn't matter in the NFL. Teams are going to potentially be able to put up points. This is just, the nature of the beast. When you're down 28 points in a season that hasn't even gone a little bit good for you, you can roll over. You can throw in the towel. You can say, all right, this is not working out for us. Justin Fields is owning us on our home field. They didn't do that. They still are playing for Sean Payton. And now for the first time in a long time, there's some wind in the sails for the Denver Broncos. And it's not like they have to go and play the Chiefs the next week. They have to play the New York Jets. And you heard me talking about Zach Wilson outplaying Pat Mahomes. I think that has a lot more to do with what the Chiefs did and Spagnuolo did defensively than what the Jets were doing. I think they'll be able to score. They should be able to run the ball, surely, against Denver. Anybody can run the ball against Denver. So if in that case, I want to bet the over in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of points, and you look at these two teams and you say, these teams are stinky poo-poo caca. No way that they're scoring. I think that's why we're getting a decent number here. Give me the over, and I also think as a short home favorite, I'm not buying they almost won stuff with the Jets. The Broncos did win. I think they win again at home against the New York Jets, and that's the way I'm going to be betting it.
I think the Jets are a public darling this week. Public dog darling. I think that that's normally a recipe for a full fade of the public there. Obviously, you have the public favorites that everybody loves. In some cases, like the Chiefs were on Sunday night, and they should have won and covered there. But a public dog darling is also a recipe for taking the other side there. Obviously, not don't do that blindly. But I do agree with you. If gun to head, I would have been Denver Broncos. But I do not have any strong lean side or opinion on this matchup. But Newbie, this is a game where I think is going to actually be it's just so interesting, right? We're talking AFC North, Pittsburgh, Baltimore. There are so many ways to handicap this game, and you could probably throw 99 out of the 100 of them out the window because it's Baltimore Ravens. None of it. Baltimore Steelers. Nothing matters, right? It just is what it is. Gun to head, I'm Ravens laying the 4. Newbie, talk to me though. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and again, I'm sorry, folks. It's the disgusting edition of the Gold Sheet as far as the picks from this side of the aisle are. I like Pittsburgh getting the 4 quite a bit. Meaning, and a lot has to do with this line of 4, because what do we know just happened recently with the Ravens and the Steelers? We'll start with the Ravens. Baltimore just eviscerated a division rival on the road, a stellar defense in Cleveland, and they didn't know which way was up. That Cleveland never had a shot in that game. They got late news that their quarterback wasn't going to be playing. I think that had a little bit to do with it, but they now play a Steelers team who can't score. They can't move the ball. They have a banged up quarterback. They have a lame duck offensive coordinator, and they just got blown out by a rookie quarterback. I'm not talking very positively about this team, am I? All of this stuff is true. Why am I taking the 4? Because it's 4. If the reality of all of what I said is truly the complexion of what this matchup is, why aren't the Ravens closer to a touchdown? Why are they sitting at a dead number of 4? I mean, that's a little bit head scratching to me. And then I just think about what we know about AFC North matchups. Notwithstanding last week, they're typically slobber knockers. And you're also getting Mike Tomlin as a home dog since he was hired in 2007, 16-5-3 against the number, 76% if you just take the points blindly at home with Mike Tomlin, winning those games outright by an average of over a point per game, 14-10 straight up. And if you say, well, Big Ben is a part of those numbers, let's just take a look at the last 3 years then, when he's had horrible quarterbacks, 5-2-1 against the number, 75% against the spread, 5-3 straight up as a home dog. And last one I have before I get your thoughts here on the Ravens, because I know it's ugly and I'm using a lot of historical data. This is a really interesting spot that Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV brings up all the time. And it's people talking about teams before the bye versus after the bye. Barry at the bar tells you, oh, the team's off a bye. They're rested. They're ready to go. The reality is teams seem to ratchet it up before the bye week. Home underdogs before the bye since 2015, 28-16-1. That's over 63% home dogs getting points before they head into the bye week. So I got historical data. I got an AFC North matchup. I have a head-scratching line that doesn't make a little bit of sense to me. I'll take the better defense getting points at home. It's making me sick even saying it. I'm gonna take the Steelers here, getting the 4 at home. That's the way I'm betting it.
So I can make 10 points. I can make the points about Kenny Pickett being hobbled, and that obviously benefits the Ravens because you have a quarterback who's hurt. You have the Ravens getting healthy. They have Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham are expected to come back. You have Lamar Jackson coming off an MVP-type performance against the Cleveland Browns defense that has looked like the best defense in football and has actually graded as one of the historically best defenses in the entire NFL over the last couple of weeks. All those things would obviously point to betting the Baltimore Ravens and or laying 4 points and thinking 4 points is short. But like I said before I prefaced your spot there, newbie, everything that conventional wisdom has to throw at you gets thrown the hell out the window every single time the Ravens and Steelers play. These spreads are, every time these teams play, the spread is 3. 3.5, 3, 2.5, 3. Like it vacillates between that key number of 3. Now we're seeing the 4, which from, I guess, a market perspective, I'd be thinking like, okay, like the market's willing to give me the 4 now. Like maybe there's something up here because they're willing to give it. Not something that I'm dying to bet, but matchup-wise, Ravens 100% 4 is short. Steelers-Ravens, historically-wise, you got to lean toward the Steelers there. So hate to not be as actionable as you knew because I know you're locking it in, Steelers +4. I am just going to say slightly on the Ravens. Could be something that I'm interested in money line or even on the survivor pick to maybe be sneaky, though I'd probably like to save them. I have to figure that out upcoming in this week. But newbie, like there's no other way to say it. Like any way of thinking about this game naturally, just Mike Tomlin, home dog, Steelers, Ravens, toss it out the window.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think adding into it is that the line has just sat. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe there's going to be late money coming in. So maybe, I'll get egg on my face. But all of what I know about this matchup and the fact that when a line is just making my head scratch, I'm always going to lean towards the dog in that one. So let's see what the comments think in this one. How crazy am I for taking a team that couldn't even move up and down the field against a junior high team right now, taking points against a Ravens team that just eviscerated a strong Cleveland Browns team? Why am I crazy? Hop in the comments and let us know. While you're down there, make sure you hit the like button.
Hop in the comments. And also, newbie, real quick, right when you finished your breakdown of the Jets, or why you like the Broncos against the Jets, the numbers lit up across the WagerTalk Live odds screen. And there are now 2s and 2.5s painted across the board when it was 1.5 2s. So maybe somebody is listening to you there, newbie. But moving on to the final matchup here, we have the San Francisco 49ers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Sunday Night Football, primetime, one of the better primetime games you could ask for as a fan of the National Football League. Newbie, I'm going to you first because I have a very strong opinion that now already locked in. This is a 3% wager talk play for the Gold Sheet. Add on, of course, to where I have the newsletter. But New, I want to hear from you first before I go into what we played as the Gold Sheet on this matchup.
The Dallas money is coming, folks. We're starting to see 3.5s basically painted across the board. Notable offshore sitting at 3 currently. So money is coming in here on the Dallas Cowboys. And that was the way that I was looking, honestly, especially if I was able to get a 4 here. I think Dallas is live in this game. I mean, if you heard Jerry Jones talk, he's billing this thing as their Super Bowl. It's the measuring stick. It's this, it's that. Dallas is going to be locked in on this game. They don't play again until Monday Night Football. And I would love, as an Eagles fan, to come on here and bash the Cowboys, but man, they look good. Dak playing mistake-free football. The defense, outside of what happened in that Cardinals game, doing a stellar job. Think about what they did. They maybe just ended Mac Jones' career last week with the dominant performance that they were able to put in against a Bill Belichick coach team. But let's be honest, like the reason why I maybe don't love either side here is neither team has really played the strongest competition to start the year. Yes, Dallas lost to the Cardinals, a team that the San Francisco 49ers took care of and covered against. But they bounced right back. And as I mentioned at the top, going to be laser focused. They have weapons to keep up with San Francisco and what they do. This is the squarest dog on the board this week. Don't get me wrong. Dallas Cowboys, America's team, getting points in prime time. I'm going to walk up, locked arm in arm with the public up to the counter and be taking the 3 in this one. If that's what we end up getting, 3.5, I would love a lot more. But I'll tell you what, those 4s look like they're not going to be there for very long, Eric. So I'm wondering, what's the play that you locked in? And are you dealing with a stale number, or are you hoisting up another CLV trophy?
Dallas +4. Locked in. Dallas +4, 3% play. Bet it this morning. Still sitting there at Caesars, which isn't widely available in every state, but something about the numbers of 3 when running through the numbers is at 3.5 at like a -108, -105. That isn't juiced over -110. Is actually a better number or a comparable number to the +4. So the +3.5 at like a -108 fits the bill too. But we did get the 4 this morning. I think that while I could see the Dallas Cowboys being public because they kind of always are public, you know, America's team, how could you not be public when you're labeled that? But while we talk ad nauseum about how impressed we are with the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys, we're talking right now about 2 of the 4 best teams in the National Football League going against each other. But my issues here are I think that Dallas is marginally better than San Francisco. I make this game closer to 2 points, so I'm getting 4. I'm obviously betting Dallas here. This is a situation where Brock Purdy, so much talk about him. You have even like Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, saying he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. 1 incomplete pass last week. Like, you can't discount those things. He's the point guard. He's running this offense beautifully. But even going back to last season where he's had this incredible run, he has not played any real good defense. The one real good defense he played, Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs, and that was that ugly slugfest that we saw that resulted in the 49ers W in that playoff game. Now, again, this season, I'm more impressed with Dallas's play, despite the 1 egg that they laid against the Arizona Cardinals, than I am with the 49ers. And a couple of reasons for that is, for starters, the 49ers defense, which obviously is great, is not as good against the run as you would think. And after looking at some of the numbers, listening to some of the people that I respect talk, shout out to Rob Pizzola, Hammer HQ, he mentioned this stat on one of his shows, that even when you discount garbage time, the 49ers EPA, or success rates allowed on the run game, are poor. Dallas, Mike McCarthy, now obviously going to try to run the football. Another metric that's been talked about a lot is Dallas's struggles in the red zone. But we're talking about a Dallas Cowboy team that last year was the best red zone team in football, and now they're one of the worst teams in football. Regression is due, right? It's not like just because they lost Zeke Elliott and Kellen Moore, this team can't score points within 20 yards now. I think that this is just statistics and variance happening in football. So now you have a Cowboys team that is matched up well on offense and now is due for some regression in the red zone. Against a Niners team whose defense isn't good, against a Niners quarterback who hasn't played a defense as good as the Cowboys since the last time he faced the Cowboys, and we saw how that game went down. And now the Cowboys' offensive line also is getting healthy. They're expected to get some of those starters back on their offensive line to help, obviously alleviate Dak, who's been playing really well throughout the course of the season, pretty mistake-free. Again, outside the 1 egg that they laid against Arizona. And truth be told, every team is due for an egg at least 1 or 3 times a season, honestly, throughout the course of the grueling NFL season. So a lot to like getting Dallas with points. I see you on how they could be a public darling dog. However, matchup-wise, Dallas simply matches up better than them. And again, we're not talking about a PK here. You're giving me 4 points. Dallas locked in +4 for the GoldSheet, and that's something that's on the WagerTalk service. Got to make sure to look at GoldSheet.com and get the GoldSheet because those picks are absolutely killing it. I think we're 15-6 this season in the NFL, which is nuts. And college is just as good. While the LTS service, which is an addition to that on WagerTalk.com, has been slacking a little bit. It's not like it's week 4. We got tons of time to get that up and going. I was down more last season when I ended up becoming first on Sports Memo at the end of the season at this time. So Dallas +4, 3% play. Newbie, you talking me off. I know you just gave a good backing for me there, but any devil's advocate for this, or can we ride it to the sunset and get ready for week 5 this weekend?
Yeah, I think the only devil's advocate then you make is Brock Purdy. I mean, we can say what all we want. We can say the luck factor. Yeah. We can say that. I mean, all the guy does is win, and all the guy does is cover at home. So until he doesn't, I guess maybe that would be the case, and definitely what people would drag us in the comments on. That offense is terrific. The defense is terrific. They're an amazing team, but this thing crashing on a Thursday morning tells me there's someone not who knows something, but there's someone who has a very strong opinion on the Dallas Cowboys who has enough money to back that opinion. So grab the 4s while they're there. Grab the 3.5s while they're there. We might have this thing closing under a field goal.
Yeah, and it also looks like the total's getting hit on the over. Like I said, that last game of the playoffs was a slugfest and a defensive battle, but it looks like some money coming on the over there as well. I have no opinion there. But that wraps it up. Week 5 best bets, running through them one last time. Just so you guys have them, I'll run a little bit late here. Newbie, loving the Jacksonville Jaguars +5.5. I lean buff, but I would bet with Newbie on this one. Arizona, Cincinnati, Arizona making a great teaser leg. Also, if you're getting the 3, take the 3. And if you have a little bit of the extra coin, sprinkle some money line there. I'm on the Chiefs. Newbie on the Minnesota Vikings +4. I'm laying the 4. Pick your side there. I'm not changing my opinion there. Newbie on the Broncos -1.5 and on the money line. No disagreements from me. Newbie leaning Pittsburgh playing Pittsburgh +4. I am leaning Baltimore -4 or looking to parlay them in a money line capacity somehow. And both of us agreement 3% play Dallas +4.5 on WagerTalk. That'll do it for the show. Likes and comments are beyond appreciative. It's the best way to help us grow. GoldSheet.com. You can find the GoldSheet newsletter. Picks for every single game. Not every single game, but picks on Tuesdays and write-ups for every single game coming out on Tuesdays for the NFL and college football. And then the LTS pick service that is in addition to those picks hosted on WagerTalk.com. On behalf of myself, Newbie, and our producer, Robo, we appreciate you guys. Best of luck with your bets this weekend, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday.